I arrived at what I thought was my sister Amanda's birthday dinner, only to find 3 stern-faced lawyers sitting at the table with documents. Amanda smugly announced this wasn't a celebration but a business meeting to sign over half of our mother's inheritance for her dream wedding. When I refused, Amanda threatened, "Just sign or this gets messy." I pulled out my phone, called someone, and 10 minutes later, my husband walked in. "Meet my husband, the district attorney," I said calmly. What he pulled out changed everything. Growing up in Appleton, Wisconsin with Amanda was mostly pleasant during our early years. As sisters just 2 years apart, we shared everything from clothes to secrets. I still remember us building blanket forts in our modest 3-bedroom home and putting on shows for our mother, who would clap enthusiastically no matter how terrible our performances were. Mom was our rock after our father walked out when I was 8 and Amanda 6. He left for a waitress at his company's holiday party and never looked back. No child support, no visits, just occasional birthday cards that stopped coming altogether by the time I turned 12. Mom never said a negative word about him, just worked twice as hard at her job as an administrative assistant at the local hospital to keep us fed and clothed. "Girls, education is the one thing nobody can take away from you," Mom would tell us while helping with homework after her long shifts. I took those words to heart, studying diligently through high school, earning a partial scholarship to the state university where I worked 20 hours weekly at the campus coffee shop to cover remaining expenses. Amanda, however, viewed school differently. Smart but restless, she changed her major 5 times in 3 years before dropping out completely. "College is just a system designed to trap people in debt," she declared, despite Mom having already spent $20,000 on her education. While I finished nursing school and then my nurse practitioner program, Amanda cycled through retail jobs, always quitting because managers didn't appreciate her potential. I met Paul 4 years ago when he came into the hospital emergency room with a twisted ankle from a charity basketball game. As the nurse practitioner on duty, I wrapped his ankle while he tried making me laugh through his obvious pain. His kindness and genuine interest in my work made accepting his dinner invitation easy. 2 years later, we had a simple wedding at a local lake with 50 guests, spending under $10,000 that we had saved ourselves. "Your wedding was cute," Amanda commented at our reception, "but when I get married, it's going to be epic. I deserve at least one perfect day, you know." I nodded politely, though Paul raised an eyebrow behind her back. Last year, Mom started experiencing unusual fatigue. Initially diagnosed as anemia, her condition deteriorated despite treatment. I took her to every appointment, arranged for home care, and visited daily between my shifts. Amanda came by occasionally, usually to borrow money or complain about her latest boyfriend troubles, rarely staying more than 30 minutes. "Joyce, you're such a worrywart," Amanda would say when I expressed concern about her limited involvement in Mom's care. "Mom and I have our own special relationship. We talk on the phone all the time." I later discovered those talks were typically Amanda calling to ask for money for her car payment or to cover her rent when she'd spent her paycheck on clothes and concert tickets. One Tuesday morning, I received a call that changed everything. Mom had suffered a massive heart attack in her sleep and was gone. The paramedics said it had been quick, that she hadn't suffered. Those words provided little comfort as I sat alone in her kitchen calling family members. Amanda didn't answer my first 3 calls, finally responding with a text. "In a meeting. What's up?" When I called again and told her about Mom, her first question after a brief silence was, "What happens to the house now?" The funeral was small but dignified, just as Mom would have wanted. Friends from her church and hospital colleagues filled the first few rows, sharing stories about her kindness and work ethic. Amanda arrived 20 minutes late, in a new black dress that still had the price tag partially visible underneath the collar. She cried loudly during the service, accepting tissues and comforting pats from strangers, while I sat quietly in the front row with Paul's arm around my shoulders. "Your mother was an incredible woman," people told me at the reception. "She always spoke so proudly of you becoming a nurse practitioner." When similar comments were directed at Amanda, she nodded solemnly and said, "Mom and I had such a special bond. We talked every day, causing me to nearly choke on my coffee." The reality of their relationship had been quite different, but I said nothing. This wasn't the time or place. A week later, we met with Mom's attorney, Mr. Granger, for the reading of the will. His office smelled of old books and furniture polish, with certificates covering the walls and a large desk between us. I expected the meeting to be straightforward. Mom had always been practical and organized. As per your mother's will, mister? Granger explained. Adjusting his glasses, her assets consist primarily of her home valued at approximately $280,000 and savings of $120,000. These assets are to be divided equally between her daughters, Joyce and Amanda Carson. Amanda immediately straightened in her chair. $400,000 total, split evenly? Mr. Granger nodded. Yes, $200,000 each, approximately, after funeral expenses and outstanding medical bills are settled. When do we get the money? Amanda asked before I could speak. The estate must go through probate, Mr. Granger explained patiently. That typically takes 4 to 6 months, sometimes longer. Amanda's face fell. 6 months? That's ridiculous! We're her only children. After leaving the attorney's office, I suggested we talk about the house over lunch. I think we should sell it, I said gently as we sat in a nearby diner. Neither of us wants to live there, and splitting the proceeds makes the most sense. Amanda stirred her soda with her straw, not meeting my eyes. Actually, I have news. I'm engaged. She held out her left hand, revealing a sizable diamond ring I hadn't noticed at the funeral. Trevor proposed last month. His family owns that chain of furniture stores across the Midwest. Congratulations, I said, genuinely surprised. Amanda hadn't mentioned any serious relationship during her sporadic visits to Mom. That's wonderful news. We're planning the wedding for this summer, she continued, her voice rising with excitement. I've already found the perfect venue. The Lakeside Manor. It's the most exclusive place in Wisconsin, Joyce. Everyone who's anyone gets married there. The name sounded familiar. Isn't that the place where the governor's daughter got married last year? Exactly, Amanda beamed. But they require a $50,000 deposit to hold the date, and I need my inheritance now to secure it. I nearly spit out my water. $50,000? For a deposit? The total wedding will be around $200,000, she stated matter-of-factly. It's actually quite reasonable for what we're planning. My mind was reeling. Amanda, that's your entire inheritance. She waved dismissively. Trevor's parents are helping too, but I need my share of Mom's money immediately for the deposit and my dress. I found this amazing designer in Chicago. I understand you're excited, I said carefully. But as Mr. Granger explained, the estate has to go through probate. We legally can't access that money yet. Amanda's expression hardened. Mom would have wanted me to have my dream wedding. You already had yours. Our $10,000 lake wedding is hardly comparable to what you're describing, I pointed out. Exactly, she said, as if I'd proven her point. You had what you wanted, now it's my turn. Mom promised me. This was news to me. Mom promised you $200,000 for a wedding? Not specifically that amount, Amanda backpedaled slightly. But she always said she wanted us both to have beautiful weddings. She knew how important this was to me. 3 days later, Amanda showed up unannounced at my house with 3 people I'd never met. Her fiancé Trevor, a tall man with an expensive haircut and designer clothes, and an older couple introduced as his parents, the Prestons. We thought it was time everyone met, Amanda announced cheerfully as they filed into my living room uninvited. Mrs. Preston immediately began talking about wedding details, while Mr. Preston asked pointed questions about when the family money would be available. It quickly became apparent that Amanda had told them we came from wealth. Amanda mentioned your mother left a substantial estate, Mrs. Preston said, her diamond bracelet catching the light as she gestured. We're so impressed with the venue Amanda has selected. The Lakeside Manor requires substantial deposits, as I'm sure you know. I glanced at Amanda, who avoided eye contact while showing Trevor photos of flower arrangements on her phone. Actually, I began carefully, our mother left a modest estate that will take months to settle through probate. The house needs to be sold before any funds are available. The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Mr. Preston cleared his throat. Amanda gave the venue a check for $50,000 last week. She said the funds were coming from your mother's estate. My stomach dropped. That's not possible. The estate hasn't been settled. All eyes turned to Amanda, who laughed nervously. I just gave them a good faith payment. I explained the actual check would come later. That's not what the venue manager said, Trevor interjected, looking confused. You told me your sister had already released funds from a special account. The truth dawned on me then, hitting like a physical blow. Amanda had been lying to everyone, including her future in-laws, about our financial situation. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding, Mrs. Preston said stiffly. We could provide a loan until the estate is settled, if Joyce would sign a contract promising repayment from her portion. That won't be necessary, I said firmly. Amanda and I will discuss this privately. After they left, Amanda exploded. How could you embarrass me like that? They think I'm a liar now. You are lying, I pointed out. To them, to me, to the venue. We don't have access to Mom's money yet, and when we do, it won't be enough for the wedding you're planning. You're just jealous because Trevor comes from money and Paul doesn't, she shot back. This is my one chance to have a perfect day, and you're ruining it because you settled for less. As she stormed out, I realized this situation was far worse than I had initially thought. 2 weeks after the uncomfortable meeting with Trevor's parents, I received a call from American Express about suspicious charges on my mother's credit card. Apparently, someone had been using it extensively since her death. We have charges for a bridal shop in Chicago for $12,000, a catering deposit of $8,000, and several smaller charges at luxury retailers, the fraud representative explained. My hands shook as I confirmed these weren't authorized purchases. The representative mentioned the most recent transaction had been attempted that very morning at a jewelry store, but was declined due to reaching the card's limit. After filing the fraud report, I called Amanda repeatedly with no answer. Finally, I sent a text. We need to talk about Mom's credit cards, now. Her response came hours later. Those were pre-approved purchases. Mom wanted me to have them for the wedding. I couldn't believe her audacity. Our mother had been dead for nearly a month, and Amanda was still using her credit cards. This wasn't just morally wrong, it was illegal. When I called back, she didn't answer, so I drove to her apartment. Amanda opened the door surrounded by shopping bags from high-end stores. Behind her, I could see a wedding dress hanging in its garment bag, alongside rows of shoes and accessories. You need to return everything you bought with Mom's cards, I said without preamble. You don't understand, she replied defensively. Mom and I discussed all this before she died. She wanted me to have these things. She wanted you to commit credit card fraud after her death? That's a felony, Amanda. It's not fraud if she approved it, Amanda insisted, though her voice wavered slightly. Anyway, her estate will pay the bills when it's settled. That's not how it works, and you know it, I countered. The credit card company has already filed a fraud report. If you don't return these items voluntarily, you could face criminal charges. Amanda's face contorted with rage. You've always been the favorite. Always so perfect, so responsible Joyce who never does anything wrong. Now you want to ruin my wedding out of spite. This has nothing to do with favorites. It's about breaking the law. Get out! She screamed, pushing me toward the door. You've never wanted me to be happy. As I drove home, my phone began buzzing with notifications. Curious relatives and family friends were messaging and calling, asking bizarre questions about Mom's will and why I was hoarding the inheritance. Cousin Sarah's message was typical. I think it's really unfair how you're keeping Amanda from having her special day. Aunt Linda would have wanted her to have a beautiful wedding. Confused, I called my Aunt Meredith, Mom's sister who had always been level-headed. Joyce, I'm hearing some concerning things, Aunt Meredith began. Amanda says you received a secret life insurance payout of $500,000 that you're hiding from her. Is that true? My mouth fell open in shock. Absolutely not. There was no life insurance policy. Mom's estate consists of her house and savings, to be divided equally between us. That's not what Amanda told everyone at the family barbecue last weekend. What family barbecue? I asked, feeling increasingly disoriented. The one at Uncle Robert's. Amanda was there with her fiancé, showing everyone her engagement ring and wedding plans. She said you refused to share the insurance money despite your mother's explicit wishes. I hadn't even been invited to this gathering. The realization that Amanda was actively turning my family against me with outrageous lies felt like a physical blow. Over the next week, the situation deteriorated further. I discovered Amanda had created a wedding registry requesting cash gifts with a note explaining that her selfish sister was withholding her inheritance. She'd even started a private social media group for wedding guests where she shared updates on her struggles with me, portraying herself as the victim of my alleged greed. My sister received $500,000 from our mother's secret life insurance policy, but refuses to share any of it for my wedding, one post read. She's already wealthy from her husband's district attorney salary, but wants to keep everything for herself. This was absurd. Paul was an assistant district attorney in a small county, hardly a high-paying position, and we lived in a modest townhouse with student loan payments that would follow us for years. There was no secret insurance policy, no hidden wealth. The most shocking discovery came when I checked Mom's mail, which I'd been collecting since her death. Among the condolence cards and utility bills was a bank statement showing numerous transfers from Mom's primary savings account to an unfamiliar account number in the weeks before her death. In total, nearly $30,000 had been moved. The transfer authorizations had Mom's signature, but something seemed off about them. I brought the statements to the bank, where the manager examined them closely. "These signatures don't match your mother's signature card on file," she said after comparison. "I recommend filing a fraud report with the police immediately." My hands trembled as I called Paul from the bank parking lot. "I think Amanda forged Mom's signature to transfer money before she died." "Joyce, this has gone too far," Paul said, his voice grave. "This isn't just family drama anymore. It's criminal activity." Yet, despite all evidence, I still hesitated to take legal action against my own sister. Perhaps there was another explanation. Perhaps we could work through this with professional help. "I'll try one more approach before involving the police," I told Paul. I called Amanda and suggested family counseling to work through our inheritance issues. To my surprise, she agreed readily. "I want to fix this too, Joyce," she said, sounding sincere for the first time in weeks. I miss how close we used to be. I wanted desperately to believe her. The family counseling office smelled of lavender and fresh coffee. Dr. Winters, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, welcomed us into a comfortable room with plush chairs and soft lighting. "I'd like to hear from both of you about what's brought you here today," she began. I explained our situation carefully, focusing on facts rather than accusations. The death of our mother, the inheritance to be split equally, and the disagreements about timing and use of the funds. Amanda listened attentively, nodding at appropriate moments. When her turn came, she surprised me with her candor. "I realize I've been difficult," she admitted, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Losing Mom hit me harder than I expected. The wedding became my focus because it was something positive to look forward to." Dr. Winters nodded sympathetically. "Grief can manifest in many ways, including fixating on future events or material things. I just want what Mom promised me," Amanda continued. "But I understand Joyce is grieving too, and I haven't been considerate of her feelings." The session continued with promising dialogue about our childhood, our different relationships with our mother, and our communication issues. By the end of the hour, I felt cautiously hopeful. "This was really good," Amanda said as we walked to our cars. "I know I've been out of line. Let me make it up to you. Let's have dinner tomorrow for my birthday, just the two of us. A fresh start." I hesitated, remembering all the recent deceptions, but the session had seemed so productive. "That sounds nice. Where should we meet?" "La Bellissima at 7? It's that new Italian place downtown. My treat," she added with a smile. That evening, I told Paul about the therapy session and dinner plans. "She seemed genuinely remorseful," I explained. "I think the counseling might really help." Paul looked skeptical. "That's a sudden change of heart from someone who was spreading lies about you last week." "People can change," I said, though I shared his doubts, "especially with professional help." "Just be careful," he warned. "Something doesn't feel right about this." The next morning I received a call from Mr. Granger, our mother's attorney. "Joyce, I wanted to alert you that someone attempted to access your mother's safe deposit box yesterday using a power of attorney document we believe to be fraudulent. The bank contacted me to verify its authenticity, which I could not do as I never prepared such a document. My stomach dropped. Do you know who tried to access it? The bank wouldn't disclose that information, but I thought you should be aware. After hanging up, I sat at my kitchen table, mind racing. Could Amanda have created a fake power of attorney? What else might she be planning? On impulse, I decided to search online for information about Amanda's recent activities. What I found left me cold. Her social media accounts were filled with extravagant wedding plans, far beyond what even her claimed inheritance could fund. She'd been posting about a 5-tier cake, imported flowers, and a designer dress from Paris. More disturbing were her comments to followers. Just waiting for my inheritance to clear. My sister's being difficult, but lawyers are handling it. And trust me, I'll get what's rightfully mine. Everything is falling into place. The posts had a calculated feel, laying groundwork for whatever she was planning. I took screenshots of everything, sending them to Paul with a growing sense of dread. As I continued searching, I stumbled across a loan application Amanda had submitted to a private lender using our mother's house as collateral. My signature appeared on the document as co-applicant, though I had never seen it before. The forgery was obvious to me, but might fool someone unfamiliar with my handwriting. I immediately called the lending company to report the fraud, then contacted Mr. Granger again to inform him of the situation. This is becoming a serious legal matter, he advised. I strongly recommend consulting with your husband about potential legal actions to protect yourself and your mother's estate. I agreed, but decided to attend the birthday dinner first. Perhaps confronting Amanda directly with this evidence would finally bring her to her senses. Despite everything, she was still my sister, and I wanted to give her one last chance to explain herself. Paul disagreed strongly. This dinner is clearly a setup. Cancel it and let's handle this legally. I need to try one more time, I insisted. If I don't go, I'll always wonder if there was a way to resolve this without legal action. Reluctantly, he conceded, but insisted on remaining nearby. I'll be at the bar across the street. If anything seems off, text me immediately. As I dressed for dinner that evening, I felt a strange calm settling over me. Whatever Amanda was planning, I would face it directly. I tucked copies of the fraudulent documents into my purse, along with the screenshots of her social media posts. Evidence in hand, I was prepared for whatever confrontation might come. The restaurant was upscale, with white tablecloths and soft lighting. The hostess led me not to a regular table, but to a private dining room in the back. "Your party is already waiting," she said, opening the door. The scene inside stopped me cold. Amanda sat at the head of a long table, but she wasn't alone. 3 men in suits sat beside her, papers spread before them. There was no sign of birthday decorations, no cake, no gift wrap. This was clearly not a celebration. "Joyce, right on time," Amanda said with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "These are my attorneys. We have some matters to discuss." "Attorneys?" I repeated, remaining in the doorway. "I thought this was a birthday dinner." Amanda gestured to an empty chair across from her. "We can order food after we handle business. Please, sit down." I didn't move. What kind of business requires 3 lawyers at what was supposed to be a reconciliation dinner? The oldest of the 3 men, with silver hair and an expensive watch, cleared his throat. "Miss Carson, I'm Walter Bennett. We're here to facilitate a resolution regarding your mother's estate. Your sister has concerns about the distribution of assets." "I'm sure she does," I replied, finally stepping into the room and closing the door behind me. "But I'm confused why this meeting was disguised as a birthday celebration." "We needed a neutral location," Amanda said dismissively, "and I knew you might not come if I told you the truth." "You mean if you told me you were ambushing me with lawyers?" "You're right, I wouldn't have." Walter Bennett pushed a document across the table. "We've prepared a revised distribution agreement. Your mother's estate was significant, and there are concerns about undue influence during her final months." I glanced at the paperwork without touching it. The heading read Voluntary Redistribution of Estate Assets. "Undue influence?" I questioned. "What exactly are you implying?" The youngest attorney, barely older than me, jumped in. Miss Carson, there are witnesses who have provided affidavits stating that you pressured your mother to change her will during her illness, using your medical background to isolate her from family members, including your sister. I laughed in disbelief. That's ridiculous. Mom's will was written 3 years ago and never changed. Mr. Granger has confirmed that. Nevertheless, Walter continued smoothly, litigation regarding these matters can be lengthy, expensive, and painful for all involved. This agreement offers a clean resolution. I finally picked up the document and scanned its contents. It proposed I receive 20% of the estate, while Amanda would get 80%, plus immediate release of $100,000 before probate completed. This is absurd, I said, dropping the paper back onto the table. You're asking me to give up my rightful inheritance based on completely fabricated claims. Amanda leaned forward. Just sign it, Joyce. Otherwise, things get messy. I have signed statements from Mom's neighbors, her church friends, even her home health aide. They all saw how you controlled everything during her final months. Because I was taking care of her while you were nowhere to be found, I exclaimed. This is extortion, Amanda. It's a negotiation, the third lawyer interjected, one that could save everyone considerable distress. I stood up, hands shaking with anger. I need to make a phone call. Amanda smirked. Running to Paul? What's your husband going to do? This is a family matter. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, Paul has some relevant expertise in this area. I stepped away from the table and called him. They've ambushed me with lawyers. 3 of them. They're trying to force me to sign over most of my inheritance with false claims that I manipulated Mom. I'll be right there, Paul said immediately. Don't sign anything. Don't even touch the documents again. 10 minutes of tense silence followed. Amanda and her lawyers whispered among themselves while I stood by the door, arms crossed. Finally, a knock came, and Paul entered, carrying his briefcase. Good evening, he said pleasantly. I understand there's a legal discussion happening without proper representation for all parties. I'm Paul Hendricks, Assistant District Attorney for Outagamie County. The youngest lawyer paled visibly. Mr. Hendricks, this is merely a family discussion about inheritance distribution. A family discussion that requires 3 attorneys and falsified affidavits? Paul raised an eyebrow. Interesting approach. He placed his briefcase on the table and opened it. Before we continue, I thought everyone should see what I've brought. Amanda leaned forward, eyes narrowing. What is this? Some kind of intimidation tactic? Paul removed a thick folder and placed it on the table. This is a case file I've been compiling over the past 3 weeks. It contains evidence of multiple criminal acts that may interest everyone in this room. He opened the folder and began laying out documents. First, we have bank records showing Amanda Carson transferred $28,500 from Linda Carson's accounts in the week before her death using forged authorization forms. The silver-haired lawyer stared at the bank statements, his expression darkening. Next, Paul continued methodically, we have credit card statements showing over $30,000 in charges made after Linda Carson's death, along with the fraud reports filed by the issuing banks. Amanda shifted uncomfortably. Mom approved those purchases before she died. Interesting claim, Paul noted, especially considering several purchases were made weeks after her death, including charges at stores that weren't even open until after she passed away. He continued laying out evidence. The fraudulent loan application using the house as collateral, the forged power of attorney document, and printouts of Amanda's social media posts bragging about manipulating the situation. The most concerning item, Paul said, pulling out a final document, is this recorded phone call between Amanda Carson and Jacqueline Miller, who was employed as Linda Carson's home health aide. He pressed play on his phone, and Amanda's voice filled the room. I just need you to sign this paper saying Joyce kept you from seeing Mom. There's $500 in it for you. No one will ever know. And you're not technically lying since Joyce did set the visiting schedule. The recording continued with Amanda clearly attempting to bribe the health aide to provide false testimony. When it ended, the room was completely silent. Walter Bennett closed his folder and stood up. Miss Carson, you didn't disclose any of this to us. We cannot represent you in this matter. In fact, we are ethically obligated to withdraw from this case immediately." "You can't just leave," Amanda protested, panic rising in her voice. "Not only can we leave, we must," the younger attorney added, hastily gathering his papers. "Knowingly participating in fraud could cost us our licenses." As the lawyers made their hasty exit, Amanda turned on me, face contorted with rage. "You planned this. You set me up." "No, Amanda," I said quietly. "You did this to yourself." The door opened again, but instead of the departed lawyers, Trevor appeared, followed by his parents. Their expressions were grave. "You called them too?" Amanda asked, her voice cracking. "I did," Paul confirmed. "Given their financial involvement in your wedding plans, they deserve to know the truth." Trevor walked directly to Amanda. "We received anonymous tips about financial irregularities and came to investigate. We've been standing outside, listening through the door, for the past 5 minutes." "Trevor, baby, I can explain everything," Amanda began, reaching for his hand. He stepped back. "My family nearly invested in your fake business venture. You told us your sister was hiding money that rightfully belonged to you. You said your mother promised you additional funds specifically for our wedding." "She did," Amanda insisted desperately. "Stop lying," Trevor said firmly, removing his engagement ring and placing it on the table. "It's over, Amanda. I can't build a marriage on deception." Amanda's face crumpled as she looked from Trevor to his parents. "Mr. Preston, please. You know how much this wedding means to me." "What we know," Mrs. Preston replied coldly, "is that you attempted to defraud your own sister, forged documents, and lied to our entire family. The wedding is canceled." Amanda turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Are you happy now? You've ruined everything." "I didn't ruin anything," I responded calmly. "I just exposed the truth." Trevor turned to me, his expression apologetic. "Joyce, I had no idea about any of this. Amanda told us your family was wealthy, and that you were withholding her share out of jealousy." "There was never any wealth," I explained. "Just a modest inheritance that Amanda tried to steal entirely for herself." As Trevor and his parents left, Amanda collapsed into a chair, sobbing loudly. "What happens now?" she asked between gasps. Paul gathered his documents back into the folder. "That depends on you, Amanda. The evidence here supports multiple felony charges: fraud, forgery, identity theft, attempted extortion. If Joyce chooses to press charges, you could face significant jail time." Amanda's sobs intensified. "Joyce, please, I'm your sister. You can't send me to jail." I looked at her. This person I'd grown up with, who I'd shared a bedroom with for 15 years, who now felt like a stranger. Despite everything, some part of me still loved her, still remembered the little girl who would crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. "I don't want you in jail, Amanda," I said truthfully. "But I do want the truth, complete restitution, and professional help for whatever led you to this point." Paul placed his hand on my shoulder supportively as Amanda stared at us both, finally realizing the severity of her situation. "I need time to think," she said finally, her voice small. "Take all the time you need," I replied, gathering my purse. "But understand that the days of manipulation are over. Whatever happens next will be on honest terms." As Paul and I walked out of the restaurant, leaving Amanda alone with the consequences of her actions, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. The confrontation I dreaded was over, but the road to resolution still stretched ahead. The morning after the restaurant confrontation, my phone rang early. It was Trevor. "Joyce, I need to tell you something important," he began, his voice strained. "After I left last night, I started looking through financial records related to wedding planning. Amanda convinced my parents to invest $100,000 in what she called your family business 6 weeks ago." I sat down, stunned. "We don't have a family business." "I know that now," Trevor sighed. "She claimed your mother had started a medical supply company that you were taking over. She said the investment would double within a year." "Trevor, I'm so sorry. That's completely fabricated. We've already contacted our attorney," he continued. "But I thought you should know. She's been spending that money, along with substantial cash wedding gifts she solicited from friends." The Lakeside Manor confirmed they never received any deposit despite Amanda showing us a receipt. After we hung up, I called Paul at his office to relay this new information. "This is escalating beyond family fraud," he noted gravely. "She's defrauded Trevor's family, potentially other individuals, and falsified business documents. The district attorney's office may need to get involved regardless of your personal wishes." Later that morning, Mr. Granger called with more disturbing news. "Joyce, the bank has completed their investigation of the transfers from your mother's account. They've confirmed all signatures were forgeries, and they've recovered security footage of Amanda making the withdrawals in person at 3 different branches. The evidence was mounting hourly. By afternoon, 2 of Mom's neighbors had contacted me, apologetic and confused. Amanda asked us to sign a paper saying you kept your mother isolated," Mrs. Jacobson explained. "She said it was for insurance purposes." When we saw the news about her arrest this morning, we realized something wasn't right. "Arrest?" I asked, confused. "What arrest?" Mrs. Jacobson seemed equally confused. "It's all over the local news. Amanda Carson arrested for fraud and identity theft at the airport this morning. They said she was trying to leave the country." I quickly checked online and found the story. Amanda had been arrested attempting to board a flight to Cancun with over $20,000 in cash. The report mentioned ongoing investigation into multiple fraud allegations and noted her connection to suspected investment scams targeting wedding vendors and family members. Paul arrived home early that afternoon, looking grim. "I've recused myself from the case for obvious reasons, but I've been briefed. Amanda tried fleeing after emptying her bank accounts. They found multiple sets of identification in different names in her luggage, along with application forms for passports." "This doesn't make sense," I said, struggling to process everything. "She's manipulative, but this level of planning suggests something more." "The district attorney wants to meet with you tomorrow," Paul added. "This has expanded beyond family fraud. They've identified at least 12 potential victims beyond Trevor's family." The meeting with the district attorney the next morning was sobering. Patricia Wilkins was a straightforward woman in her 50s with reading glasses perched on her nose and walls lined with legal texts. "Miss Carson, we've uncovered a pattern of fraudulent activity by your sister spanning approximately 3 years, she explained, opening a thick file. "Identity theft of your mother appears to be just the beginning. We found evidence she created at least 4 fictional business entities to solicit investments. She slid documents across her desk showing business registration papers for companies with names like Carson Medical Supplies and Innovative Health Partners, all listing Amanda as CEO and using Mom's identification information." "How could she do this without Mom knowing?" I asked, bewildered. "Your mother's mail was being redirected to a P.O. box for at least 18 months, Patricia explained. "We believe Amanda completed a change of address form without your mother's knowledge." The depth of deception was staggering. According to the investigation, Amanda had been systematically stealing Mom's identity long before her health declined, opening credit cards, taking loans, and creating falsified investment opportunities. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. "Your sister faces multiple felony charges. Given the premeditation and dollar amount involved, she's looking at significant prison time unless she accepts a plea agreement." When I visited Amanda at the county jail 2 days later, she looked small in her orange jumpsuit, her face scrubbed clean of makeup, dark circles under her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said immediately, no greeting or pretense. "It started small, just borrowing Mom's credit card without asking. Then it got easier each time." "Why?" I asked simply. "You could have just asked for help." "And admit failure?" She laughed bitterly. "Perfect Joyce would have loved that. Miss Responsibility with her perfect career and perfect husband. You've always made me feel inadequate." "That was never my intention," I said, genuinely surprised. "I've always admired your creativity and social skills." Amanda scoffed. "Right. While you were getting scholarships and awards, I was just the pretty, fun sister. No real value. Is that why you created this elaborate wedding? To prove your value?" She looked down at her hands. "Trevor was my ticket to security. His family has real money. I thought if I could just get through an impressive wedding, I'd finally have stability. By stealing from our dying mother?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. She was going to die anyway, Amanda said defensively, then flinched at her own words. That sounds terrible. I just meant the money would have gone to us eventually. Half to each of us, I corrected. Not all to you for a fraudulent wedding. Amanda was silent for a long moment. They're offering a plea deal. 5 years if I cooperate fully, return all the money I can, and plead guilty. Are you going to take it? Do I have a choice? She asked bitterly. The alternative is 15 to 20 years. They found evidence going back to college, Joyce. Apparently, I never actually graduated. I forged my diploma. This was news to me. What about your student loans? The ones Mom helped with? Spent on other things, she admitted. Clothes, trips, keeping up appearances. I sat back, trying to absorb the scope of her deceptions. My sister had been living a completely fictional life for years, one elaborate lie building upon another until the inevitable collapse. The district attorney mentioned restitution as part of any plea agreement, I said finally. Is there anything left to return? Amanda shook her head slowly. Most of it's gone. The investment money from Trevor's parents went to pay off older debts. It was like a constant shell game, moving money around to cover previous lies. As our visiting time neared its end, Amanda looked directly at me for the first time. Will you be at the hearing next week? I hesitated, torn between anger and the lingering bonds of family. Yes, I'll be there. Joyce, she said as I stood to leave, for what it's worth, I am sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for everything. Mom deserved better. So did you. It was the first genuine thing she'd said, and despite everything, I felt a tiny flicker of hope that perhaps, somewhere beneath all the lies, my sister still existed. The plea hearing was brief but emotional. Amanda appeared subdued in her jail uniform as she formally accepted responsibility for multiple felony counts. The judge reviewed the terms: 5 years in state prison, psychiatric treatment, full restitution to victims, 3 years probation after release, and 200 hours of community service. Does the defendant understand these terms? The judge asked. Amanda nodded. Yes, Your Honor. And does the defendant have anything to say before sentencing? Amanda turned slightly, finding me in the small audience. I want to apologize to everyone I've hurt, especially my sister. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way, and I'm truly sorry. I hope someday I can make amends, though I know I can never undo the damage I've caused. As the bailiff led her away, our eyes met briefly. There was shame there, but also something else. Perhaps the first genuine acceptance of responsibility I'd seen from her in years. Outside the courthouse, Trevor approached me hesitantly. Joyce, I want to apologize for my part in all this. I should have seen the red flags. She fooled everyone, I assured him. There's nothing to forgive. He handed me a small gift bag. I found these in Amanda's apartment when I was collecting my things. I think they belong to your mother. Inside were Mom's pearl earrings that had gone missing months ago, along with her wedding ring and several pieces of jewelry I'd assumed had been lost during her illness. Thank you, I whispered, closing my hand around these tangible connections to Mom. This means more than you know. After Trevor left, Paul put his arm around me. How are you holding up? I leaned against him, emotionally exhausted. Processing. I still can't believe the scope of her deception. Some people get so caught in their lies they can't find their way back to the truth, he observed. Hopefully, this is her rock bottom, and she can rebuild from here. As we walked to our car, I clutched the small bag of recovered treasures, symbols of both what had been lost and what might, in some form, eventually be recovered. 6 months after Amanda's sentencing, I stood in the empty living room of my childhood home, saying a final goodbye. The house had sold quickly, slightly above asking price, bringing closure to at least the financial aspect of Mom's estate. After deducting Amanda's legal fees, court, ordered restitution, and settling Mom's remaining medical bills, I received approximately $140,000 as my share. Amanda's portion went primarily to her victims, with a small amount placed in a trust for her eventual release. Ready? Paul asked gently, carrying the last box to our car. I nodded, taking one final look around the space where I'd grown up. It feels strange, knowing we'll never come back here. Houses are just structures, Paul reminded me. The memories come with us. That afternoon, I met with the dean of nursing at my alma mater. We'd been discussing the establishment of a scholarship in Mom's name, using $30,000 from my inheritance. The Linda Carson Memorial Scholarship will support one nursing student annually, Dean Roberts explained, reviewing the paperwork, with a focus on candidates who demonstrate financial need and a commitment to compassionate elder care. Mom would have loved that, I said, signing the endowment documents. She always believed in the power of education to change lives. This is a beautiful way to honor her legacy, the dean agreed. Your mother must have been an extraordinary woman to inspire such generosity. She was ordinary in many ways, I reflected. She worked a modest job, lived in the same house for 30 years, clipped coupons, and wore the same winter coat until it fell apart. But she taught me that ordinary lives can have extraordinary impact through small, consistent acts of kindness. 2 weeks later, I received my first letter from Amanda. Prison regulations meant communication had been limited to my visits, which had been brief and somewhat strained. Dear Joyce, she wrote in her familiar looping handwriting, my therapist suggested writing letters as part of my recovery process. First, I want to thank you for visiting last month. I know it couldn't have been easy walking into this place to see me. The psychiatric program here is intense but helpful. I've been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial features. That's not an excuse for what I did, just a framework to understand the broken thinking patterns I need to address. For the first time, I'm facing the reality of who I've been and the damage I've caused. It's excruciating but necessary. I think about Mom often, about how much she sacrificed for us while I was stealing from her. The shame is overwhelming sometimes. I've started working in the prison library. It's peaceful among the books, and it gives me time to reflect. I'm also taking accounting classes. Ironic, given my financial crimes, but the instructor says understanding ethical financial management could be part of my rehabilitation. I don't expect forgiveness, Joyce. What I did to you, to Mom, to everyone, may be unforgivable. But I am trying to become someone who wouldn't make those choices again. Someone who might, someday, deserve to be your sister again. The letter continued with details of her daily routine and therapy insights. I read it several times, searching for manipulation or deceit, but finding only what seemed like genuine remorse and small steps toward change. My reply was cautious but supportive of her treatment efforts. I included photos of the nursing scholarship announcement and mentioned that I'd donated several boxes of Mom's clothes to the women's shelter where she'd occasionally volunteered. Spring arrived, bringing unexpected news. I was pregnant, due in late November. Paul and I had been trying since shortly after Mom's death, feeling the circle of life continuing despite our losses. Mom would have been so excited, I told Paul as we looked at the ultrasound images. She always wanted grandchildren. She'd be proud of how you've handled everything this past year, he replied, holding me close. Your strength, your compassion, even your boundaries. In May, we purchased our first house, a modest 3-bedroom Victorian with a wraparound porch and mature maple trees. It needed work but had good bones, as Mom would have said. The nursery could go here, I said, showing Paul the small room with southern exposure, morning light but not too hot in the afternoons. As we settled into our new home, I received occasional updates about Amanda through the Victim Services Coordinator. She was complying with all program requirements, continuing therapy, and had even started a financial literacy group for other inmates. She's doing the work, the coordinator assured me. Of course, sustainable change takes time, but the indicators are positive. In June, Trevor stopped by unexpectedly, looking relaxed and healthy. I'm moving to Seattle next month, he explained, sitting on our new porch swing. Fresh start, new job in tech. That sounds perfect, I said sincerely. How are your parents doing? Better. The court ordered restitution helped, though they lost about $60,000 in the end. The experience changed them. They're more cautious now, less impressed by appearances. Before leaving, Trevor handed me a small box. I found this when packing. It's the only wedding item Amanda actually paid for legitimately. I thought you might want it. Inside was a silver picture frame engraved with "Family is forever." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Despite everything, Trevor said thoughtfully, I hope she finds her way back. Not for my sake, but for hers and yours. In August, I visited Amanda again. The prison visiting room was crowded with families, children running between tables while guards watched impassively from the corners. Amanda looked healthier than during my previous visit. Her hair was neatly braided, and she'd gained some needed weight. You're showing, she observed immediately, eyes drawn to my visible pregnancy. When are you due? November 20th, I replied, settling awkwardly into the plastic chair. Boy or girl? We decided not to find out. Either way, the nursery is painted yellow with a woodland theme. Amanda smiled genuinely. Mom would have knitted a blanket already. Remember how she made one for every baby in the neighborhood? I found her patterns when clearing the house, I said. Her friend Harriet from church is making one using Mom's design. For the first time since this ordeal began, we talked easily, sharing memories of Mom that weren't tainted by recent events. Amanda asked thoughtful questions about the pregnancy and seemed genuinely happy for me. I want you to know, she said as our visiting time neared its end. I've been completely honest with my therapists about everything. No more manipulation, no more half-truths. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most freeing. That's good to hear, I said cautiously. I don't expect to be part of your child's life, she continued, voicing what I'd been silently wondering. At least not any time soon. I have 3 more years here, then probation. I need to prove myself through actions over a very long time. Her self-awareness surprised me. That's very insightful, Amanda. Hard-earned insight, she replied with a sad smile. I've lost so much through my own choices. I don't want to risk hurting anyone else, especially a child. As fall arrived, bringing crisp air and changing leaves, Paul and I finished preparing for the baby. My pregnancy had progressed smoothly, and we'd completed the nursery with a comfortable rocker near the window where I imagined spending long nights with our child. One Saturday morning, while Paul was installing baby-proof cabinet locks, I visited Mom's grave with fresh flowers. The granite headstone was simple but elegant, just as she would have wanted. Hi, Mom, I said softly, arranging chrysanthemums in the cemetery vase. Your grandbaby will be here soon. I wish you could have met them. Sitting on the small bench nearby, I reflected on the tumultuous 18 months since her death. The betrayal, the legal battles, the painful revelations about my sister's double life. Through it all, I'd tried to honor Mom's values: honesty, compassion, resilience. Amanda's making progress, I told the silent stone. Real progress, I think. Not just for show. The counselors say her remorse is genuine, and she's developing actual empathy perhaps for the first time. A gentle breeze stirred the flowers as if in response. I'm trying to keep an open mind about her future role in our lives, I continued. It will depend on her continued growth and stability. Paul is more skeptical, but he supports whatever boundaries I decide to set. As I drove home, I reflected on the lessons from this painful chapter. The importance of documentation and clear boundaries, the danger of enabling harmful behavior out of misplaced loyalty, the reality that sometimes those closest to us can cause the deepest wounds. Most importantly, I'd learned that forgiveness doesn't require forgetting or removing consequences. It's possible to wish someone well on their journey of rehabilitation, while maintaining necessary distance for your own well-being. On a crisp November morning, our daughter, Elizabeth Linda Hendricks, arrived, healthy and strong with a powerful set of lungs. Holding her in the hospital room, I felt Mom's presence strongly, a circle completed despite all the brokenness. She has your mother's eyes, the nurse commented, and Paul agreed. And hopefully her character, I added softly. 2 days after bringing Elizabeth home, a carefully wrapped package arrived with prison return address. Inside was a hand-knitted baby blanket in soft yellow yarn with a note. I learned to knit in occupational therapy. Not nearly as good as Mom's work, but made with hope for your child's future. With love, Amanda. I ran my fingers over the slightly uneven stitches, recognizing the effort and meaning behind them. The blanket represented something fragile but real, the possibility of redemption and growth, even after terrible mistakes. That evening, as Elizabeth slept peacefully in her bassinet, Paul and I discussed Amanda's future role in our lives. "I'm not saying we should pretend nothing happened," I explained. "But I do believe people can change if they truly commit to the process." Paul nodded thoughtfully. "Your compassion is one of the things I love most about you. Just promise me you'll maintain appropriate boundaries. Elizabeth's safety and well-being have to come first." "Always," I agreed firmly. "Any relationship with Amanda will develop gradually, with clear expectations and consequences. Trust has to be rebuilt slowly, through consistent actions over time." 6 months later, we visited the university for the announcement of the first Linda Carson Memorial Scholarship recipient. Sarah Williams was a single mother returning to school after working as a nursing assistant for 10 years. "This scholarship means everything to me," she told us, eyes bright with tears. "I've dreamed of becoming a registered nurse for so long but couldn't figure out how to afford school while supporting my son." Watching Sarah accept the certificate, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Mom's legacy would continue through this scholarship, through the values she instilled in me, and through my daughter who would grow up hearing stories about her grandmother's quiet strength and generosity. The journey through grief and betrayal had been painful beyond measure, but standing on the other side, I could see how it had also brought clarity and purpose. I had learned to stand firmly in my truth, to recognize manipulation, and to set boundaries without guilt. Most importantly, I had learned that the best response to deception is not revenge, but living authentically. As for Amanda, her path to redemption would be long and entirely of her own making. Whether she would ultimately succeed remained to be seen, but I had made peace with my part in that story. I would neither enable nor obstruct her efforts. My door would remain cautiously open to genuine change while firmly closed to manipulation. Driving home with Elizabeth babbling happily in her car seat, I reflected on Mom's favorite saying, "The truth will out in the wash." She had been right. Despite elaborate deceptions, the truth had indeed emerged, painful as it was. And from that difficult truth, a more authentic life had become possible for everyone involved. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with family members who repeatedly violated your trust? How did you balance compassion with self-protection? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content about navigating complex family dynamics. Share with someone who might need encouragement to stand firm in their boundaries today. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you strength and clarity in your own family relationships.